back to the Artie Lange Show. Mandy Stadtmiller expects $1,000 for each date. That's the math we've got.
Well, actually, do you want to know the closest to prostitution I've ever come?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
So when I was out in LA, I signed up for that dating site, What's Your Price?
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and so all these men like bid to take you out, and I met with one.
Okay.
And he was this like 5'2" married Asian guy.
Right.
And
let the fun begin.
And
in order to meet him, did he have to pay you?
Well, so he was the only guy I met from that website. And so when I basically just gave him advice on how to use like Twitter the whole meal. You know, it was basically like a consulting
Not working
session.
out. But John brings up a good point. Just to meet you, money?
Just to meet you, they bid money.
Oh, okay.
And so, and my friend Scott said not to accept anything under 300. But this guy, it was like 100, and it was like a last minute thing. And
that is hilarious.
So after the Indian meal where I took home his leftovers, I was like on a budget. No,
wow, really?
Know?
So you got the money and the leftovers.
Yeah, he like palmed $100 into my back as he hugged me goodbye.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's the like closest.
Boy, people never disappoint. People never disappoint on the creepy level.
Yeah.
They really do. That's amazing.
But it was an interesting experience.
What did you talk about?
I gave him advice on how to effectively use
How long
Twitter.
does that last for?
I could talk about Twitter for hours.
Oh, okay, I was saying there had to be a lot of brutal small talk there.
Well, I mean, he basically liked to talk about how dumb Americans are.
Oh, that's fun.
And
great.
yeah. So men basically want a receptacle to like listen to all of their BS. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's
I feel
big
like
with men. And they want to make it seem like they're interesting too.
Yeah, and so I mean, you could go hours just nodding and smiling. You know what I mean?
Fascinating. Was this guy a successful businessman?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Right.
He was. He talked to me about his daughter going to college. And
That's not too creepy.
Yeah. No, that's not at all. Yeah, I'm happy to give.
Anything else you need?
Yeah. I didn't mean to go to such a dark place. I feel like I should give something. I feel like I should give something really happy and inspiring.
This is a perfect Valentine's Day conversation.
Is it?
It is. I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about gossip. I noticed that just the world of gossip. I noticed that Alec Baldwin.
It always goes back to gossip. Sorry. Yeah.
Alec Baldwin is now back in the paper today. Him and his. He tweeted a picture of him and his wife and his daughter doing yoga or something. And he was just like all over the paper for like the nastiest stuff to where like really like you thought you'd never hear from him again. Like how long with a guy like Alec Baldwin? What's the grace period before he's allowed back in the gossip columns in kind of a nice way? Like, is there a time you give a guy?
Well, I mean, people use the expression now that we don't live in the 24-hour news cycle. We live in the 24-minute news cycle.
Pretty much,
because of Twitter.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that as long as you have someone who delivers, and who can take a joke. Like if you show that you have a sense of humor, I think that's the thing about him is that he shows enough that he has a sense. You
think he shows that he has a sense of humor?
Well, I mean, not when he's threatening to, murder a little twink or whatever his tweet was about that guy.
Well, he got in trouble for homophobic stuff, which is like a lot of times you're banned forever.
Right.
But he seems to be back and like everything's okay.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of like. It's like Woody Allen, you know what I mean? It's like if you don't want to go somewhere, you're willing to believe a lot of things about someone, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, I just think that there are so few people who are actual movie stars or TV stars or A-list celebrities.
That's a good point. And they can bounce back. You're saying the test of that is if they can bounce back.
I think so.
That's
I mean,
a good point.
I think that, I was talking to a celebrity who's no longer A-list, and she was wary of doing my podcast because she's trying to do movies again, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
It's all. I feel like there's always kind of It's very rare that someone is banned entirely, but it does happen.
The true test of a star, then, is you can get back in there.
Absolutely.
Either because you're that good. Well, in Woody Allen's case, is you're that talented and that much of an icon, I guess. And what you're saying, just a flat-out star. And I guess Alec Baldwin has that status. It's weird, you know.
Are you friendly with him?
I don't know. I never met him before in my life.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, it's funny.
Are you a fan of his?
I like his. Well, it's funny. A lot of stuff he's been in, I like.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff I could care less about. But I think he's funny. I think he's been very funny in certain things. But I don't know if he's on the level of.
I did a nasty item about him once.
Yeah. Well, it seems like everybody in your business has, though, because he does a lot of nasty things, though.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
David Permut, who did one of Alec's first films. He was, I believe the quote he gave was something about how the reason he's so good at playing a-holes is
one.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I mean, I
can
don't know.
believe that. I mean,
it's like the whole "don't meet your idols" thing, you know. I'm someone who just like I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like you have to physically threaten my family for me to be fully, you know what I'm saying?
See, but I think to be good in the business you're in, you almost have to be that way. You can't have too much.
You can't be precious.
You can't have too much of a thin skin at all.
No.
Otherwise, it'll be ruined, your entire situation, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he's a classic example of that.
Yeah.
I think he comes off as a pompous ass, and I think he is one, ultimately, but I don't know. Who knows? I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I tend to think that he doesn't laugh at himself enough, and that makes me not like him as much as I would someone who, I mean, like, to me, I feel like so many people actually believe their own BS.
Right.
And that's where you go into crazy land in celebrity, is if you just surround yourself, like, I mean, the example that I always say is, like, my dad is blind, and he was a Vietnam hero.
Is that how he got blind?
Yeah, he was shot twice in the face in Vietnam.
Wow.
And so
God, what a
it
real,
was kind of like, well, so that's
Yeah.
the thing, is it's an automatic.
I never knew that about you. Wow.
Yeah. So, and he is a great guy, but he also, like, his ego is huge because he's always being, it's like growing up with Paul McCartney. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're always surrounded by yes people.
When that's happened to you, everyone wants to please you and make sure you're happy.
Yeah, and to me, it's like an insight into celebrity and why you always want to have people who will tell it like it is. You know what I mean?
No, that's a good example. I mean, if that happens to someone in life, everybody around them, I'm sure would want. Like, I've never met him before. My ultimate instinct would be to make him happy or kiss his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I got to take another break. Back after this with Mandy Stadtmiller. Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. The great Mandy Stadtmiller is here. She is the host of the podcast News Whore, deputy editor of XO Jane. So how does real quick, we only got a couple minutes, but how does doing News Whore affect this other job, this other corporate gig you had? Has it been a conflict of interest at times?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I've done a couple interviews with people who also write for the site.
Right.
And I mean, you know, I think it's just you have to be smart about things. But for the most part, I've always said that when I left the New York Post, because they didn't let me do Stern or Opie and Anthony, they made me turn down so many, the Situation Room.
Right.
And I've always said that since then I would never let a corporation have ownership over me like that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of established that before I took the gig.
Oh, good. I was going to say, because it would seem like to do News Whore the way I know you want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just based on the interview we had, it was so candid and everything. I mean, but then you got this other very corporate situation.
It's really not corporate, though, because it's, I mean, you know Jane Pratt, and Jane is, like, awesome and amazing. And, like, Jane is someone who is so smart that she supports. It's kind of like the New York Times, where you know how the New York Times will have stars like David Carr, Brian Stelter, and all those people are doing Colbert and they're doing the different shows because the New York Times is confident enough in itself as a brand that it knows it can have stars underneath it.
You see David
the New York
Carr
Post was always afraid that anyone who had any kind of star would outshine the Overlord brand of the Post.
You see David Carr all over the place, which is great.
Have you ever had him on?
No, I'm dying to. I love that guy.
Yeah.
We got to go. But Mandy Stadtmiller, XO Jane, and the podcast News Whore. I want to talk to you about that, actually.
Okay.
Mandy Stadtmiller.
The Artie Lange Show, weeknights on Audience, only on DirecTV.